Okay. So hi everyone, welcome to the EMU release review. This is a review of the overall 3 months release here. The duration of the release was roughly 86 calendar days or 62 weekdays. Wish it was weekends. The sprint was hit by a lot of interruptions in terms of both holidays, a lot of travel for a number of conferences, including OpenStack and the SDN conference in Düsseldorf, as well as tutorials in Spain. But we still managed to get a lot of stuff done, as you will see. We ran the release in 4 sprints, which comprised of 2 3-week sprints plus 2-week sprint at the end and 1 wrap-up sprint. Actually, I take that back. It was like so. Okay. And we approximately completed 420 story points, or I should say we completed approximately 420 story points. Clearly we need to work on our burn down rate, but we have some plan enhancements to how we run the overall Scrum process in Falcon. And so we'll address some of that to get a little bit tighter tolerances around what points we take on and what points we complete. So on a platform side, there were miscellaneous number of improvements and sort of reinforcements. We first of all added support for application dependencies, recognizing that some applications may need facilities of other applications. In order to formalize that, we added this mechanism. We also added some instrumentation for better visibility in what overhead the different packet processors impose on control path, as well as we'll be able to better track what packet requests there are on the data plane. We also added support for validation of network configurations to defend against malformed configurations from entering the system. We updated ONOS package script to be able to install and run ONOS on deployments without internet access, which is a huge thing, and it's been requested actually repeatedly. We also sort of without really planning, this was a spare time project. We added ability to inject alternate path algorithms and configure alternate link weights without actually having to write code. So for example, this way deployers can annotate links and with metrics and be able to take those metrics into consideration by default without having to inject their own code. And we also developed a number of new SDC scenarios and enhancements for developers to have access to testing facilities. So on a core side, I'm going to let Madan cover this.
Sure. There are a few areas where we sort of introduce new services to enhance functionality and also to better prepare ourselves, when we introduce dynamic clustering. So one of those was we introduced the notion of a cluster metadata service, which lets you. It's basically a mechanism to inject cluster metadata. Previously, this was supplied through files that were deployed on every host. But this gives us the ability to decouple us from where the files come from. These can live remotely, or this can live on the local file system. If the deployment so desires. We also introduced a concept of persistent service. This is something that we want to use for managing all instance local data persistence. So, for example, today we have such needs coming from intent store and flow rule store and so on. This is what we will be using for those, and that integration is already in place. Towards the beginning of this release, we introduced this concept called a mutex execution service. So what this does is it gives you an ability to run tasks that need to run in one place. If that instance dies, you need to move that execution to somewhere else. This is a very common pattern. Today, this is achieved through using the leadership service, but we felt that was a low-level primitive for doing this. Instead, this is now exposed as a execution service, and then you basically supply a runnable to it, and it runs it in a mutually exclusive fashion. So this is also part of the EMU release. There were some minor enhancements again, but still important from the point of view of stability. We have an ability to detect and prevent interference from non-cluster members. We have basically been hurt by this a couple of times where someone starts up a cell with a subset of members, and then you have another member that is running but still sending traffic to this cluster. We have had issues in the past, but now we have an ability to prevent that from happening. So this gives us better stability when running in a multi-cluster sort of shared development environment. There are also a few bug fixes that were identified and put in place. An important one was we were having an issue with event delivery for consistent map, especially when running in larger clusters, like clusters greater than 3 nodes. So this was something that we identified and fixed. So that is part of the EMU release as well. In addition to that, a lot of work has been done towards dynamic clustering support. But due to lack of time in thoroughly testing it, we decided not to include it as part of the official EMU release. But starting Falcon, we will be incrementally merging this into master. The goal is for this feature to be available as part of the Falcon release. But midway through Falcon, we will have this feature available in master if anyone wants to use it.
Great. Thanks, madam. The southbound, is Ali here? So, well, if you want, I can cover that. In the meantime, okay, well, let's take advantage of this break and see if David can join. Hi, David, are you on? Okay.
Yeah, he's got it.
Yeah, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Good.
Justin.
Sorry. My bad.
Justin.
Oh, no worries.
Delivery of Ali.
Thanks. Thanks, Ali.
Okay. Yeah. So for the southbound, we've had a few relatively big bug fixes. One with host management and a not pointer that was thrown during flow processing. We've split up the OpenFlow feature into multiple features, so you can swap out providers more easily. Because previously, all the providers were bundled under, even though some of them were not really OpenFlow providers, they were all bundled under the same feature. And so we split them out so that we can swap out host providers and LSD providers, and this will be more useful for deployments in environments where you don't want ONOS to actually do topology discovery, for example, but be configured as topology, or you don't want ONOS to do host discovery, but rather be configured with hosts, so on and so on. And so in that line, Charles built a network config host provider. And that thing is pretty cool. It's actually really nice for testing as well. It makes your life a lot easier because you can just feed in hosts via the REST API. And so you get hosts that show up in the system. It's much easier to manage when you're trying to debug issues with like host management and stuff, because you can see if the events are thrown, rather than moving a host is really hard when it's connected to Builtin. Well, it's not hard, but it's just more typing than you'd like to do. So that's kind of cool. The next little thing is ONOS now both listens to 6633 and 6653. And I think I forgot to mention that we also have SSL support now.
Yeah.
So you can connect switches via SSL, and that's amazing. The next thing is we've added controller config behavior to the driver subsystem. So that's a behavior that allows us to set and get controls. That's work was done by Brian and other Italian dude, Andrea, and so that's kind of cool. So we can set controllers. I think right now via the netconf and OVSDB, which is very, very handy for deployments. There was also a fix for message delivery, where during a role transition, Some messages were lost. It's a good improvement. There's netconf provider improvements. I've gone into it. We finally have good coverage on the OpenFlow subsystem, thanks to Ray. And Jono and I, well, Jono did most of the work. I just did the talking. It seems to be my role now.
You're doing a great job.
You're so good at it.
I love it so much. It makes me so excited. So we from ONOS, we were able to extend our set of treatments and selectors in ONOS, and those can then be translated into OpenFlow extensions, which is super handy, obviously, because you want to be able to support these extensions. And we've added a few more criteria here and there that we've needed along the way. So for the extensions, I think right now we support resubmit, move, setting the outer IP of a tunnel of an ECAP packet. Anything else? Anything else that we support as extensions? I can't remember. But yeah, so move is really useful. It makes for very complicated flow rules, but it allows you to write flow rules that like respond to ARPs. It's pretty cool. So that's that.
So just a few things to add. The breakup of the OpenFlow providers into multiple separate apps is actually one of the first examples of you relying on the application dependencies. And also on the controller config behavior displays really nicely into the dynamic cluster scaling. Because if you add an instance, it certainly would be handy to be able to reach out and touch the switch and tell it about the new instance rather than relying on manual configuration. So it all goes together. Thanks, Ali. All right, on the northbound, Brian.
Cool. So we have two big improvements that were completed for EMU. The first is the new resource service, which was led by Sho from Jitsu. We replaced the resource specific services like the device and link resource service with a general purpose resource service that supports new semantics like sharing and continuous values. So that's been merged, and we've moved all of the users of the old services to the new one. The other thing that is new for EMU is the remote service, which is a registry of RPC-based models for communication with our core services outside the JVM via high-performance RPC mechanism. We have an initial implementation of a gRPC-based, general RPC-based remote service, and this has been work that's largely been led by Utah and with help from Mark. And then we've also continued to refine the approach for the intent domain subsystem, which we've postponed to Falcon.
All right.
What the G stands for.
General? I think. Or Google. Came from Google. I don't think it actually stands for Google,
I
though.
don't think it stands for Google, but yeah.
Great.
It's easy mnemonic, right?
gRPC.
All right.
So
Web UI.
for the web UI, let's see, the user from the UI can now set the friendly name of devices if they want to. We added a navigation button on the intent view, so if you look at the list of intents and you select one intent, you can click a button and it'll take you to the topology view and then show the path that intent is flowing across. On the topology view, topology overlays can add highlights to devices and posts with little badging, so you can put in text or images. We also added a dialog box for overlay developers to make use of to interact with the user. We added a map of both North, Central, and South America for Luca. And
map of Italy?
You already have that. That was the first.
Luca, we have all your personal requirements.
Yeah, exactly. Another personal requirement from Luca.
if you look in the bottom right of the screen, there's a quick screenshot, stationary, of a branded loading icon that I did. So now if the server is tardy, you'll see that guy pop up. But hopefully you won't ever see it because we'll have, low latency. We also created a sample app, so it's actually separate, and the tutorial goes with it that basically shows how to create custom views, table views, and topology overlays. So we've got some pretty good documentation and tutorials going there. And we actually created archetypes for those. So you can actually create some new web content in less than half an hour.
That's great. The little circle thing that's like dots move. Like,
Yeah.
Can we make this one?
Yeah, we probably could. We tried that, but.
And okay, great. Thanks, Simon. And also, oh look, don't worry. The Black Rock City map will be available in time for August.
For your Burning Man deployment.
That's planned already.
Yes. So that one we may handle through sprites though. All right.
That's great.
Okay. On REST and CLI, Ray, do you want to give an update, or do you want me to take care of it?
Why don't you do it since you're there?
Okay. So there were a number of new REST APIs added. Most recently, Jean added one for metric service. We also, Andrea, added support for JSON schemas to be viewable from the Swagger UI, so that you can easily see what the expected produced or consumed JSON is supposed to look like. We've also added additional operations and fixed some existing operations for network config subsystem and for intent subsystem accessibility through REST API. And also we fixed number of codecs for better representing, let's say, ether types in easier to read format. And this is just an example. There were a number of fixes to the codecs as well. One thing I forgot to add in here is we also added a REST archetype, which can be overlaid on top of an application, which will turn your application into one capable of essentially exposing REST APIs. And one thing about the archetypes, they can all be laid on top of each other. So you can have a CLI, REST, UI, all on top of each other to produce a single bundle application that has all of these different facets. So that's quite handy. Okay, on the built-in apps, we now have 46 apps, 59 if you count the extended sample applications. So that's quite a bit of growth, at least since I was at Days, when I think we had 4. And most recently, Path Painter was added to allow users to visualize path through their topology. The DHCP server was also enhanced with help from SK folks. And a number of apps have been restructured to take advantage of the new application dependencies mechanism. Okay, David, do you want to give an update on the community?
Sure, absolutely. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
David?
Can you turn up your volume?
Oh,
Can you hear me?
now we can. I had you
Okay.
muted. My bad.
Great. Sorry. Yeah, it didn't sound like I was coming through earlier. Sorry, there's a little bit of an echo. I'll just ignore that if you can hear me okay. So, a few things with the community over the last few weeks. One, as it says here, we rolled out the initial module owner pilot. It seems like initial feedback from this has been very positive. Brian Thomas and I were talking about this yesterday. It seems like it's meeting the goals we had set for it. Is this a way to reduce the feeling of being overwhelmed by the current reviewers, and is this a way to distribute responsibility in a meaningful way to new reviewers? And it sounds like both of those things have happened. Sounds like the new people who have come in and as module owners have done a great job. So congratulations to everybody. Definitely a very encouraging first step. As this says, though, this is just a pilot. One of the next steps we want to do after the holidays is do a more formal review of how the pilot went, and then talk with the community about how to move forward with that. So look for that coming soon. This next bullet is an ongoing item. Ayaka, Luca, and I are meeting regularly now to talk about how to improve the wiki and how to bring more people into documentation contribution opportunities. We've had some interesting results from that. A couple of people have shown up recently and said, hey, what can I do to help you with the documentation? And then that's been a really positive forcing function. It's encourage. We suspected there were people out there who wanted to help, but actually knowing people who are like, hey, what can I do to help? It's really a nice feeling. So we're gathering information, and we'll start working with them going forward. This next post about blogging has kind of evolved into more social media. Luca and Matteo and I have been talking about how to integrate and connect all the social media accounts that ONOS has, including the blog. Right now, it's a very fractured experience. A lot of people don't even know that there is a blog, but if you do follow the blog, then you're not getting information from Twitter and you're not getting information from YouTube, for example. It's just, a very there's not like a one-stop shop place to go to find everything you need to know about what's going on with ONOS. That's one of the things we're pulling together, not just having a calendar of putting more content out there, but making it easier for people to access. Again, one of the main pillars of the community plan is clear communication, and having an easy way to find out and follow what's going on in the community is key for that. And then I had shared some earlier in the week at the engineering meeting, but another big focus of the community recently was website updates. So as you will have noticed, the ONOS website has been updated. The focus on the new homepage is much more introducing people to what ONOS is and how to get involved. And I think that's providing a better experience for people now. And then also we launched a V1 of the Cord website, and there'll be more details and more information fleshing that out coming in the new year. And that's it.
Great, thank you, David.
So, Tom, I have an answer for you. gRPC is a recursive acronym. It stands for the gRPC Remote Procedure Call.
That's cool.
It's like GNU is not Unix.
Yeah, there's the whole list of the recursive.
All right, who's going to give an update on QA? Is it Subin or John?
So there are a couple of enhancements we made to our ONOS framework to help new people come and write tests. So we wrote some functions for parsing and comparing flow rules, both from the OVS switches and ONOS. And then there's a pause function for debugging, so you can stop a test and look at things. We also support for SCAPI packet generation and capturing from the media hosts within the test. And then some of the new tests that we have, there's a network config functionality test. We split one of the HA restart tests into a stop and kill. So those are two different behaviors. And then there's the Docker platform test, which just starts ONOS from the Docker images. We have a topology scaling test, and we provide the dead optical functionality test. And so all of those tests are now running nightly in our production environment. And then we also are storing all the logs from the production test, so it's easier to debug. And those are some of just the high-level things we've done.
Great, thanks, John. And then bug summary too.
Just want to get a quick summary of all the bugs that's up to date. So this release, we created 128, and resolved close 76. And what's remaining in Jira today on the bug count is 113.
Okay, so there are a lot. Can you talk towards the mic?
There are a lot of we resolved a lot of bugs this release, and a lot of them actually got resolved in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and they're all pretty severe level bugs. And I'm not going to go through every one of them, and the few that we highlight that's unresolved and in the backlog are some of the things we want to consider putting priority in for the coming sprint. That's it. Any questions on the bugs?
Do you fix the other bugs is once the link thread hit the 1600?
That's in the backlog. That's the large total. Okay. The large total one that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Okay, Luca, you're up.
Yeah, deployments. So, yeah,
I think
Yeah, they will hear me. Okay, so AM Lite, so Network of South America, we created the production slice. This is the first real production slice that runs real production traffic, right, between users. We are running for now. We are using that for now for nightly backups and the video conferencing system. And we are hoping to get feedbacks this time from users, right? Are not just machines that are pinging one each other this time, right? Which is great. ARNet and CSIRO, so Australia, it came out, I guess you guys saw, there was something on the announcements. It came out, a press release 2-3 days ago. They deployed their SDN network using ONOS and SDN IP. It connects 9 sites all over in Australia, plus 2 international peerings, one to ESNet and one to AM Lite. ESNet is not ONOS enabled for now. There are some items still preventing us to deploy there, but AM Lite, of course, it is, and they are exchanging 20 prefixes. Giant, we are finalizing the connection. We are ready in South America, but we are still not completely in Europe. But we are finalizing the connection between South America and Europe in London. So the thing here is to have a mesh topology instead of a linear topology, right? We are trying to make things more complicated and to involve more states around the world to try more things. Creonet, hopefully we are almost done with the SDN IP deployments, almost, because there's still some peering sessions that are not coming up. It's a combination of tricky VLANs and BGP configurations, but we are working on it. And the other news is that they are really committed to do an international peering and connect to the rest of, of the global SDN deployment, as we call it. So, and hopefully we will show this soon at ONS, for example.
How many of these deployments are on Drake? All of them? Or
yes, I forgot to mention that we move all of these to Drake, and of course, as for every release, we have automated tests. Once we know that everything works, we just drive the users to the operators to move to the new release.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, and a very good news. So, as you probably know, in the past it took a lot of time to move to the new release, right? The great news here is that Drake, it took 1 day, more or less, to move, to install it and to run it without any bug. So this means that the quality of the software we are all producing is starts to becoming really good, right? So,
that is good news.
So we should be really proud of this, I guess.
No, thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, Mark.
Okay. So on the optical front, we did a few tasks. One was port to the new network config subsystem and move away from that messiness we had before with annotations and all kinds of scripts to parse all of that. Brian covered the new resource subsystem, so I won't go into detail there. And then the last one is OTN multiplexing by our partner, and I think today announced as collaborator ECI Telecom.
They've changed the name, by the way, to ECI.
ECI full stop? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the eCode front, a lot of preparatory work to build this thing. One is supporting disaggregated modems, and for that we did a bunch of optical behaviors. And for the Falcon release, we'll be doing the implementation based on the hardware we're getting soon. And then the second part is the JRPC device link providers to have this kind of, I know you don't like the word Thomas, federated architecture, but there's multiple layers of control. Let's keep it like that. And that's really a task in support of that.
Sounds
That's it.
Gee, man, I make one comment.
Yeah, it's gonna keep on coming back. Huh?
By the way, Ayaka and I had a discussion offline about that. We're all good, so no worries.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah. Okay. So the ONOS framework is part of the Open ONOS the project, right? So in the email release, we basically focus on the two features. One is layer 3 support, and the second one is service function chaining. Okay, now over here I can give you a quick update of where we are in the Open F3. So basically on the December 1st, they have milestone D checks. Basically, that checklist is include your APIs, your features. So we passed that the milestone D. So the next one is milestone E, which is the code freeze, and the final release is milestone F. It's in February. So far, it's in the good shape. But we are seeing the challenges in the now because originally there was just to say, hey, you need to support 1 or 2 installers. Now the installer extended to the 4. So the 4 environment is the JoJo's and the Fuse and the Congress, all these installers you need to support. So we put a lot of engineer effort to try to make the ONOS framework to work with those installer environment. So it's a pretty tough work and the challenges. So what you guys see here is just a part of the development work in the ONOS. Okay, so come down to the ONOS part. ONOS development part is Jim Young will give us a live demo. That is basically as another the big things happening in the local in Huawei. We built the labs here, and eventually we'll try to run the live demo in the futures. So the layer 3 is the westbound and the southbound, and the north and south. Later on, you will see we can pin the Googles from the host, any host tenant to the outside, and talk each other across the different tenant network. So here is the Open F3.
Next slide.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to cover all.
Yes.
Yeah. For this service function chaining, we already passed the milestone D as well. So for all the APIs, all the API documents, you can go to our ONOS wikis. You can see all the APIs is there. So the couple of things I want to highlight about this function service function chainings. Basically, they have dependencies. Now in the OpenStack, they have a project called the service function chaining. That one will provide the service logic in service chaining controls in the OpenStack. Over here, we'll try to build the two things. One is the APIs support, and the second one is service function chaining managers. So for the service function chaining features, currently we support a couple of things. You can specify install service functions in any VMs, or if you want to do the load balancing, like add the more virtual function the instance, you can do add as much as you can. So you can scale up. Okay. So the service functioning, the service function is you can do a chains over there. So for the service function chaining, basically currently the OpenStack, their work have not done yet. So you can now see a live demo through the create a service function through OpenStack and install the service. So far, I'm sorry, you cannot see this. I hope we can see soon. Okay. So it's about this ones. Yeah, it's the
question. Does this support message headers?
Yes, yes. So the match criteria in this one is the layer 2 to the L4. So we'll extend this one to the layer 7 in the F release. Yes, saved in message. The video is ready, so we basically run simple applications to simulate all these things. Yep, it's a service function tuning. Yep, it's done.
Is it? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Over here, I just give a quick update. Okay, the BGP RS. So all this one is basically was trying to enhance the ONOS in the legacy systems. So the BGP RS and the PCEPs. Potentially we could add more. Over here, we found a couple of things that we need to enhance the topology management in the ONOS. Like we see the layer 3 topologies, right? Currently, that part code is not done. It's done yet, but it's not ready to publish. So the BGP provider is ready, but the topology management, that code is not ready yet. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, by the way.
Okay.
Sorry, do you guys want to pass the microphone to Ping Ping?
Thank you. This is the highlight for the entire EMU release. The sentence in blue color is what we did in the last sprint. So in this sprint, we finally finished the last scenario, nightly function test, multiple ONOS SDNP speakers, and based on Internet 2 topology and the integration with Swiss firewall. And another new feature is the default route support in both IPv4 and IPv6. The porting reactive routing to the new config subsystem is in progress. I haven't finished this yet. And the journal component ties to the internet signaler and the SDNP FIP. This is for 4K. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. On the fault management subsystem, this is a contribution from BTI. The APIs have been reviewed and actually are part of merged into EMU. And the implementation, I think, just barely missed the EMU release, and so it's now ready to merge. It's gone through one round of reviews, and will be merged into Falcon in the coming days. And I presume it will also continue to evolve. Now, this includes the manager, the store, the REST API, CLIs, but also what I forgot to mention here, also the SNMP-based collector. And also, we will be taking advantage of the SNMP libraries for other configuration-based activities, I think, for optical use case. Brian, did you want to give an update on security?
Oh, sure, yeah. So this is an update from Chang Hun from Case. Two things done on security mode ONOS for the sprint. The first is performance improvements. We discovered that the initial implementation was rough, and that the using the Java Security Manager to do API level permission checks was extremely expensive because we had to look at the whole stack trace, analyze it, and then pass that over to Security Manager. Chenghu's implemented a new caching mechanism to avoid the repeated checks. It takes the hash of the stack trace and then sees, given the API that's being requested, whether or not the permissions have been previously granted, which isn't quite in EMU yet, but like the BTI stuff, it'll get merged. The code's been written, and the reviews is almost complete, and it'll be merged very shortly. The other thing that we did was, previously it was actually quite difficult to turn on security mode ONOS. It required changing a bunch of stuff in a bunch of random files. We've updated ONOS package for remote deployments and ONOS setup carafe for local deployments, so that with a single flag, security mode ONOS can be enabled. And that is in EMU.
Okay, so thank you. What we're going to run Falcon planning in the beginning of the year, and I'm not sure whether this is going to happen or not, but we may also run G release planning at the same time. I think that was your suggestion, though, right? And I think it's a good one. Because there's some overhead to the planning, and we know that there's going to have to be continuity in order to beyond the ONS release in order to assure success of the core field trial. So we'll probably be planning in the beginning of the month both of the releases. There's a starting document that's been started that we'll be sharing with everybody shortly after the holidays with some of the work items for those releases.
And today we're going to pick a date and time for the planning session. So that'll come out soon to the mailing list.
Yeah. Also, another thing that we will try to do is to publish a calendar of when we're going to be, of some milestones. So, for example, when we expect to run first RC build, when we expect the functionality of code freeze to happen, so that we're more disciplined about about when certain things will happen to give our collaborators better chance to plan around those dates.
So the meeting will be the first week of the New Year?
So we're going to decide today. There's another meeting this afternoon, and we're going to pick a day for planning.
So I hope it will be the first week.
We'll take that into account.
I hope.
We aim to please.
So we're trouble.
Where's your request on a post-it? Give it
All right. Well, thank you very much. I think it was a very successful release, and I'm really glad to hear the testimony from Luca that that the quality of code is improving. So hopefully we can keep up with the Drake's record for EMU as well.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
And good holidays, everybody.
Great.